why me and why Cheng He? I'm an operations supply chain professor. The kind of research that I do are normally the mathematical modeling, kind of supply chains and so on. So I don't quite do this kind of historical research on historical characters.
NUS Business School professor Hum Sin Hun specializes in logistics and finely tuned global supply chains. It's not a subject, he thought, that would have much to do with a 15th century Chinese admiral. But it was exactly because of this logistics expertise that Professor Hum became intrigued by the story of Zheng He. Under orders from the Chinese emperor, the eunuch admiral led 7 epic voyages involving hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of crew on journeys covering more than 300,000 kilometers. For Professor Hum, the obvious question was, how did he do that?
How did he feed his people? 28,000, 27,000 plus. And then when he goes out into the seas, right, he can at most be on one ship, right? Then what about, how do he command and control his people out there? So immediately I saw that, there's a lot of logistics and supply chain management in it.
Delving into the story of Zheng He's voyages, Professor Hum discovered important lessons in logistics and supply chain management practices, all still relevant today. First, the admiral had to have strategic intent and clarity. In other words, be clear on the purpose of the mission. Zheng He's emperor-decreed missions were aimed at spreading China's goodwill and splendor through collaborative trade and exchange. To do this, he had to build a supply chain that would deliver imperial gifts and Chinese goods, provide supplies for his crew, and bring back the goods and tributes he acquired along the way. As commander, Zheng He had to decide on the size and shape of his fleet and the composition of his crew, as well as make resupply arrangements. It was a feat he accomplished nearly a century before other, more well-known explorers.
To be fair to Christopher Columbus and the other explorers, they were kind of like exploring, but Cheng He was actually going out to trade, and therefore his vessels have to be large in that sense to carry the goods. Cheng He's ships, as they come out from China and into India and into Africa, were really a representation of a floating supply chain.
Professor Hum points to Walmart as a contemporary example of a company with strategic intent and clarity. Walmart's supply chain innovations, such as early use of electronic point-of-sale technology and satellite communications to link to its suppliers, allow it to replenish its stores faster, giving it a competitive advantage and a dominant position in the marketplace. Another vital factor for Zheng He was having a supply ecosystem in place. In the 15th century, China already had advanced shipbuilding capabilities and a well-established foreign trade policy on which he could rely. Today, Professor Hum points to Singapore as an example of a 21st century port offering ready access to supply chain capabilities, attracting multinational companies looking for a logistics hub. 6 centuries ago, Zheng He also had to recruit specialists for his supply chain leadership and expert teams, much like today's key account officers. Putting them to work on ships organized by function allowed him to accomplish some unusual tasks.
The literature tells us that when Cheng He went out to Africa, the locals gave him a giraffe. And giraffe, with the Chinese, is a strange animal, kind of like never quite seen before, right? And Cheng He faithfully shipped that back, right, to China, and therefore for that you need a horse ship.
Another problem was communication across the vast fleet. Zheng He's solution was a system of sights and sounds. He equipped each ship with a large flag, signal banners, a drum, gongs, and lanterns, creating an intricate but easy-to-understand signaling system. Professor Hum compares this to Japan's just-in-time and total quality management systems, simple visual-based production practices that allow workers to identify and solve problems themselves. It was also important for Zheng He to establish a series of regional bases in order to refresh his crew, take on provisions, or just wait for favorable monsoon winds. For this, collaboration with local leaders was important, and first impressions mattered.
If you are the Sultan of Malacca, right, or the Chief of Malacca, small little port, And then in the horizon, you begin to see, far away. You don't know what this is, but there's some mass kind of approaching right towards you, right? And then as you get nearer, you suddenly realize that, hey, this thing is huge. This is big, right? And then as you get nearer, you hear all the noise. You hear the drums, the gongs, and everything else.
Professor Hum says it's all part of building collaboration from a position of strength. Across each of his voyages, Zheng He used this approach to build a network of bases and partnerships, extending the reach of his missions and growing the imperial supply chain across Asia, reaching as far as the east coast of Africa. This strategy of collaborative supply chain expansion remains relevant today.
Cheng He's bigger message is his art of collaboration. It's very different from, I'm coming up, you are my enemy, you're my competitor, I'm trying to win market share of you, in which case it becomes a zero-sum game. I win, you lose. But the moment you say, I'm going to build collaboration, then we are saying we're trying to build win-win, and therefore we are growing the pie together. You win, I win. The ability to build that kind of collaboration is a major lesson for today's world.